Hello again, Struck. I believe it is time to do a deep, very deep dive into the Paragon trees for each class. And the Necromancer is the class I want to make this deep dive for first. And the Necromancer has 8 Paragon boards, including the starting board that makes it 9. So there's the Cult Leader, there's the Hulking Monstrosity, the Flesh Eater, the Scent of Death, Bone Graft, Blood Begets Bloodbath, and Wither. So with 8 plus 1, I think that's a lot of diversity, and considering that we would have around 200-ish Paragon points to spend, and reaching each legendary takes around between 15 and 20 something. There's definitely a lot of room to mess around with Paragon boards, be it whether you want to focus on getting as many glyphs as possible, be it whether you want to get as many legendary ones as possible for your setup, which in my opinion won't be the smartest move. Or is it, do you want to just get the most important ones for your build, get all the glyphs, and then start to go towards the yellow nodes that nudge you towards certain builds. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's useful information for all of you out there. Buckle up, Struck Club, and let's go. I would like to start with the basic Paragon board. Why, you might ask? Well, the starting Paragon board is, well, the starting point, obviously. And even though it doesn't have a legendary Paragon tile, it does have a glyph socket, and it does have 4 yellow nodes. Let's go through the yellow nodes one by one. First, we've got Prime, which gives you weapon damage, maximum life. It gives you weapon damage if you have X amount of intelligence, and it also gives you weapon damage if you have X amount of willpower. Now, this is probably total willpower and intelligence, not willpower and intelligence in nearby nodes. So then we have resilience. Resilience, pretty solid, pretty interesting. Gives you resistance to all elements. It gives you maximum life. Gives you resistance to all elements if you have if you meet two requirements. So you need X strength and X dex. If you don't have either of those or both of those, you definitely won't get the O element resistance. Then what we have here is another resistance to O elements only requiring dex, and another only requiring strength. So this is an extremely important note in my case for survivability. And next to it, we've got some yellow ones for all resistances and for life. Here we have life again. Here we have weapon damage. You'll probably learn by the end of this video some of the icons, what they are. On the other side, we have basic nodes like intelligence, willpower, dex, and strength. Now here we have preservation, which, as you can see, armor and intelligence. Then what else do we have? We have armor if you have enough dex. Wow, this one is weapon damage and intelligence. And then you have weapon damage if you have enough willpower, as well as extra weapon damage if you have another intelligence. Here we have some more weapon damage. As you can see, more weapon damage, some dex, some armor nodes, some willpower, and more weapon damage. And as well as the glyph. And at the exit, we have 5 to 0 stats. Strength, int, willpower, dex. All main, I guess that's the major attributes. Let's move on to the next board. So next up is the Cult Leader. And every gate on every node, connection gate, is 5 to the O major attribute. Strength, int, willpower, dex. The Cult Leader is a legendary node that gives you your minions deal X amount percent multiplicative increased damage for each minion type you have active. Minion type, not minion type. This only applies to the minion type Skeletal Warrior, Skeletal Mage, and Golem. So you can have up to this percent times 3 if you have Skeletal Warrior, Mage, and Golem active. Which is still a solid note, nevertheless, definitely very, very strong note to go for if you have all the minions active. On top of that, we have here this little cluster with Infused Warrior, which gives you damage bonus pet, and then armor bonus for the pet. So that my guess is this is damage to minions, armor to minions. Then you have bonus, another damage bonus for the pet, and it's a rare major, so it's gonna be a big bonus like the one above. If requirements are met, intelligence and dex. So if you have enough intelligence and dex, you would have that extra bonus. While the other ones at the top are there even if you don't meet the requirements. Around this we have damage bonus pet single magic, so most likely to the mages. And again another one for that for the mages, and another one for the mages. Wow, this is armor for the pets. I think magic it just refers to the blue tier, so it should be damage to all pets, damage to all pets, damage to all pets, armor to all pets, armor to all pets. Over here we have a lot of life, armor, armor, life, and armor to the minions, all of that. And here we have armor that, the armor dairy. So that's pet armor plus maximum pet life. When I say pet, I mean minion. And then we have another bonus. So if you have enough dex, you will get more armor for minions. What we do have here is damage reduction for your minions plus intelligence for you. And if you have enough dex, you get another damage reduction bonus. There we have damage reduction, damage reduction, damage reduction, all for the minion, and dex for you to help you meet this requirement if needed. Then we have minion attack speed, damage to minions, damage to minions, damage to minions, minion attack speed, and here we have major damage to minions, minion attack speed extra, and it seems to be additive. And then we have, if you have enough requirements, extra damage to minions. Over here we have, if you meet certain requirements like intelligence and power, both requirements, you get damage bonus to minions. And regardless whether you meet the requirements, you get pet minion damage, and you get resistance or resistance to the minions. Around it you have damage bonus to the minions, damage bonus to the minions, damage bonus to the minions, and all resistance to minions and all resistance to minions. There's all sorts of other notes, the typical ones, the white ones. This is dex, this is int, you probably already know them. This is willpower, and the fist is the strength. And there is a glyph right here, one glyph socket. So let's move on to the next one. Hawking Monstrosity is, as the name suggests, a golem-related legendary note. Your golem has multiplicative added increased maximum life. Let's just say multiplicative. Multiplicative increased maximum life, and use multiplicative increased damage. So pretty much simple, yet very easy to understand, yet still good to have if you're going for a golem build. Now what we have here is damage to minions, max life to minions, and if you have enough intelligence and willpower, more damage to minions. This one, damage to minions, and this I think would be damage to the golem, because look at that icon. I think this specific one would only be to the golem, while the other ones would have been, if you go back to Cult Leader, this is for the skeletons most likely, because it has the skeletal icon. While this one here under Hawking Monstrosity obviously refers to the golem. So damage, and then max life to the golem. And then armor to the golem, armor to the golem second time, armor to the golem third time, 2 nodes with resistances. And this one gives you armor and resistances to the golem, as well as extra um, extra armor to the golem if you have enough dex. Well, here we have armor to the golem and intelligence, and if you have enough willpower, more armor to the golem. And then there's willpower to help you around it, and then there's armor, armor, and armor to the golem. If we move on here, there's damage to the golem and intelligence for you. And if you have enough dex, there's more damage to the golem. There's dex here and here to help if you need it. And then damage bonus, another damage bonus, and another damage bonus to the golem. Then we have another place here with 3 times damage bonus to the golem. And see, this one is armor and armor, while this one here gives you damage and armor, and extra bonus if you have intelligence and willpower X, extra bonus damage. And there is a glyph. Again, each of the boards, all 9 of them, the 8 plus starter, have a glyph in them, but only the 8, not the starter, have the legendary. Moving on to the next. Next up, we have the Flesh Eater, which is a very interesting, very interesting board. First of all, we have Flesh Eater, which consuming 5 corpses grants you X% multiplicative increased damage for 6 seconds. And then we have certain things like this one here that says execute rare. So execute, in my opinion, is chance to execute a target if they are under 10%. There are some things in the Necro skill tree that could do that. There's Book of Death upgrades for your minions that can do that as well. So first of all, at the top, you get that execute X%. Not sure if it's additive or multiplicative. It doesn't say. Then you get additive attack speed. And then if you meet strength and dex requirements, more execute. If you meet intelligence and dex, more execute. If you meet strength, more execute. If you meet willpower, again, more execute. And then willpower and intelligence requirements to get even more execute. There you have 2 additive attack speed bonuses and 3 execute bonuses. Now, what you have at the top is poison conditioned, which gives you poison resistances. And it also gives you armor. Then another poison resistance if you meet willpower requirements, and if you meet intelligence requirements, more poison resistance. There you have armor, armor, and then poison resistance, poison resistance, poison resistance. Here you have targeted, which gives you additive damage to elites and intelligence. Then bonus, if you meet enough dex, you get more more damage to elites. Then here damage to elites, additive, damage to elites, additive, damage to elites, additive. Here a little bit of dex to help with the requirement. What we have here is erudite or erudite, which gives you resistance to all elements and intelligence. Then if you have enough willpower, you get more resistance to all elements. Resistance to all elements 3 times around it and 2 times willpower to help with the requirement. Obviously there's a glyph, and over here we have Typho. Typho is interesting because first it gives you damage to injured enemies. Injured is if they have above 80% HP. And critical strike damage, additive. Then another additive damage to injured enemies if you have X amount of dex. Then there's crit strike damage, crit strike damage. There is damage to injured enemies, damage to injured enemies, damage to injured enemies. And over here we have something that gives us recuperate. Potion healing bonus, so that's bonus to your potion healing, how much it heals. I'm assuming. And then there's healing over time increase additive. Then what you have is another one of those bonuses for the potion healing. if you have willpower, another one if you have strength, and another one if you have intelligence. Here you have healing over time increase and another healing over time increase. There you have potion healing bonus 3 times. So pretty much the same stat as here, just a magic version of it around it. And let's move on to the next board. Next up, Scent of Death. A very interesting board as well. With at least 2 corpses nearby, you get multiplicative damage reduction. When no corpses nearby, you deal increased damage. This would be very good, in my opinion, for builds that consume corpses, a lot of them. And there's this one unique item that lets corpse explosion consume up to 5 additional corpses. So combining that with blood mist that auto detonates corpse explosion would be a massive, massive synergy. So very, very fun note. Then preservation, additive armor, additive intelligence, bonus if you have enough dex, more additive armor. Then armor, armor, armor additive, and a little bit of dex to help with the requirement here. Obviously a glyph. And what we have here is death mark. This gives you damage to injured enemies and intelligence. Then more damage to injured enemies if you have enough willpower. 2 notes with willpower to help for that, and more damage to injured enemies 3 times here. Over here we have corrective, which gives you additive crit strike damage as well as potion healing bonus. And then if you meet enough willpower requirements, you get more crit strike damage. There is this healing bonus for the potion, and there is this crit strike damage 3 times. 2 times healing, 3 times crit strike nearby. What you do have here is Shadow Resilience. This gives you, I'm assuming, multiplicative Shadow Resilience. It doesn't have a plus, and multiplicative maximum life percent, and both of those. Then if you have enough willpower, you get more shadow resistance. If you have enough intelligence, even more shadow resistance. Then there's 3 times shadow resistance nearby, and there is maximum life 2 times nearby. Over here we have Ruin, which is additive damage to healthy enemies, meaning above 80% HP. And here we have critical strike damage additive. Then bonus, more damage to healthy enemies if you meet a dexterity requirement, and then if you meet a certain intelligence requirement, another additive damage to healthy enemies. Then we have 1, 2, 3 times additive damage to healthy enemies, and then crit strike damage twice. Again, there's crit strike damage here and here. Now there's crit strike damage here. Definitely a lot of crit strike damage in this one. Over here, did we go through death marked? Damage to injured enemies, intelligence, and then if you meet willpower, more damage to injured enemies. And then 3 times more damage to injured, and then 2 times willpower to help. I think we went through that one, so let's just go to that one. Deathbringer. Damage to injured enemies again, can stack with that one there as well. And additive armor. Then more damage to injured enemies if you meet strength requirements, and if you meet dex requirements, another one, and if you meet dex requirements, another one for damage to injured enemies. 3 times more damage to injured enemies here, 1 time armor, and a 2nd time armor here. So this node definitely would be fun to build, to use in certain builds. Next up, we have something called Bone Graft. Hitting enemies with bone skills increases your damage by 1% additive and your maximum essence by 3 for 8 seconds. Actually, that 1% is multiplicative, not additive. So your damage is increased by 1% multiplicative and your maximum essence by 3 for 8 seconds. stacks up to X amount of times and increased damage and X amount of maximum essence. I can't tell you the exact number of how much multiplicative damage and how much maximum essence that would be, but it could be up to 50%. It could be up to 50%. Again, there's some things that I'm not that great at guessing when it comes to the scripts that they've used, the formulas they've used, but it will be a solid number for both of them, most likely. I mean, it's a legendary note after all. Next up, we have Entomb. Crit chance by skill tag. And by this skill tag, I'm not sure what it would be, but it could be by minions, it could be something else. But crit chance by a certain type of skill, most likely bone skills. This is my guess. Bone skills because of the bones in it. So crit chance with bone skills. Then potion healing bonus, and then more crit chance by bone skills if you have enough strength. And if you have enough dex and willpower, even more crit chance by bone skills. If you have enough strength and willpower, more crit chance with bone skills. Then crit strike damage, additive crit strike damage second time and the third time. Then you have potion healing bonus second time. Over here we have tenacity, which is percent maximum life, and then armor for you. What else we have there is more percent maximum life if you have enough strength, more percent maximum life if you have even more strength, and then more percent max life if you have willpower, and if you have even more willpower, more maximum life. Then 3 times maximum life for you, and then 2 times maximum armor nearby. Over here, calcified, which is crit strike damage, and then bone skills damage. Then another crit strike damage if you have enough int and dex. Then you have crit strike damage 1, crit strike damage 2 times, and then bone skill damage 3 times nearby. I think the crit strike damage here needs to change, because in other places, if we go back here, crit strike damage would look like that. So they probably should make it look the same way. It's the same exact thing that it's supposed to give you, but maybe not. Maybe it's a different type of bonus crit strike damage. Okay, moving on, we have reinvigorate. Maximum damage over time, additive, essence on kill, additive, and then if you have enough willpower, maximum damage over time. Then we have more max damage over time, more max damage over time, and more max damage over time here 3 times. Then we have essence on kill, additive here, and essence on kill, additive here. Did we go through this one? I think we did. Max life, yeah, we went through this one. So Shaper of Bone, which is interesting. Bone skill damage and intelligence, and then a bone skill damage if you have enough dex. To help with the dex, there's 2 notes, and then 3 times more bone skill damage around it. Glyph nearby. Then 3 times resistance to all elements, 2 times willpower to help with this requirement in a moment I'm gonna talk about. First of all, this one erudite. We've seen erudite in another place in the Flesh Eater. Well, this is kind of similar. I wonder if you can stack both of them. Most likely you can. So resistance to all elements for you, intelligence, and then if you have enough willpower, more resistance to all elements. 3 times resistance to all elements here, and this willpower as we mentioned. Next up, another specific to a certain type of skills, board. Blood begets blood, as the name suggests, has to do with the blood skills, but in particular with blood orbs. Blood orbs grant increased multiplicative damage up to X for 5 seconds. I cannot tell you the exact ending result that we would see here, but it should be a reasonable amount. It's a legendary after all. What we have here is aggression, which is overpower damage and weapon damage. Then, if you have enough dex, more overpower damage. If you have enough int, more overpower damage. Then more weapon damage here, more weapon damage there, and 3 times more overpower damage around it. There is a glyph as each node has it. Then recuperate. Potion healing bonus and then healing over time. Then if you have enough willpower, more potion healing bonus. If you have enough strength, more potion healing bonus. And if you have enough int, more potion healing bonus. Then healing over time once, healing over time twice, and 3 times potion healing bonus nearby to take. Over there, vampiric sounds nice. Blood orb healing additive and maximum life %. And then if you have enough willpower, more blood orb healing. Then 3 times more blood orb healing around that node to take, and 2 times maximum life around that one to take. Blood empowered. Blood orb duration and damage bonus on picking up a blood orb. And intelligence. On top of that, if you have enough dex, you can get some more damage bonus on picking up a blood orb. There's 2 dex to help with the requirement nearby, and then there's overpower 3 times. Now what we have here is Blood Drinker. Blood Drinker is, well, blood orb healing increase as well as 10 intelligence. And then if you have enough willpower, more blood orb healing. There's 3 times more blood orb healing around it and 2 times more willpower to help with it. Bloodbath is a very interesting, again blood related, but this time the focus is more towards the overpower rather than the blood orbs. Attacks that are guaranteed to overpower deal X% multiplicative increased overpower damage. Then what you have here is damage bonus, and then on top of that you have fortified generation increase. Then fortified generation increase 1 time. Then fortified generation increase 2nd time. And then damage bonus while fortified 1, 2, 3 times. And as we know, you can only do overpowered when you're fortified. So this definitely will stack up with this in a very nice way. What we have here is Powerhouse, which is damage while you're healthy, while your HP is over 80%, then overpower damage as well. And then if you have enough willpower, more damage while healthy. Then 1 time, 2 times, 3 times damage while healthy nearby, and overpower damage 2 times nearby. There is the glyph here. Then we have more damage bonus while fortified, more intelligence, and if you have dex, even more damage bonus while fortified, as well as another 3 times damage bonus while fortified, and 2 times dex to help with the requirement needed for this one. Over here we have remedy, which is increased healing received plus also intelligence. And then if you have enough willpower, more increased healing received. Then 3 times more increased healing received blue around it, and 2 times more willpower to help with the requirement around it. Over here we have stuff used resilience, which gives you damage taken over time reduction and resistance to all elements. And then if you have enough intelligence and willpower, damage taken over time reduction. If you have the willpower bonus met, you also get more damage taken over time reduction. And if you have enough intelligence, which is less than the one for the combo one, you have enough, even more damage taken over time. Then 3 times damage taken over time reduction nearby, and 2 times damage to our resistance blue nearby. And then finally we have tick height. Damage bonus while fortified, then maximum life increase, and then more damage bonus while fortified if you meet the requirements for intelligence and willpower. 3 times more damage bonus while fortified in blue, and 2 times in blue maximum life. Last but not least in any way, we have Wither, the Wither board. Your shadow damage over time effects have 5% multiplicative chance to deal X% multiplicative bonus damage each time they deal damage. This chance is increased by 1% multiplicative, and bonus damage is increased by X% multiplicative for each 50 willpower you have. So this is definitely gonna nudge you towards taking a lot of willpower related bonuses from Paragon boards and from items. Now, what do we have in terms of yellows? First of all, we obviously have a glyph socket, as each board has one. We have Malediction, which is shadow damage additive and intelligence additive. Then more shadow damage additive if you have enough willpower. And to help with that, there's 2 willpower blue nearby. Then we have 3 times more additive shadow damage blue nearby. Then over here, lingering shadows gives you damage over time shadow. So shadow damage over time and regular shadow damage. So the shadow damage over time is additive but percent, whereas the shadow damage is additive but flat number. And then more percent damage over time shadow if you have enough intelligence. Then we have the damage over time additive percent 3 times nearby as blue, and the flat shadow damage additive 2 times blue nearby. Over here we have dragging shadows, which as you can see, damage reduction from affected by shadow damage over time enemies. So if an enemy is affected by your shadow damage over time, although it doesn't say whether it has to be yours, it maybe could be by somebody else. If you're playing with a rogue that does a shadow build, for example, there's that type of damage reduction against that enemy. Then you get shadow resistance and more damage reduction from enemies affected by shadow damage over time if you have enough dex. Then damage reduction from affected by shadow damage over time 3 times in blue, and then shadow resistance 2 times in blue nearby. Moving on here to Gloom. Gloom has percent shadow resistance and then extra intelligence, and then if you have enough dex, even more shadow resistance. And to help with the dex, there's 2 blue nodes nearby, and then 3 more shadow resistance blue nodes. Over here we have Gnawling Darkness. Gnawling Darkness. And Gnawling Darkness gives you damage to affected by shadow damage over time effects. Again, it doesn't specify that it has to be affected by your shadow damage over time, but ideally it will be by yours if you're playing so, obviously. Then there's damage to elites. And bonus, more damage to affected by shadow damage over time enemies if you meet a certain dex requirement. Then you have damage to elites twice, additive percent, and then more of that additive percent damage to affected by shadow damage over time enemies 3 times in blue nearby. And I think that's the only one left to check here. Restorative, potion healing bonus, and maximum life. And then if you meet enough willpower, more potion healing bonus. If you meet enough intelligence requirement, more potion healing bonus. So interesting board, I might say. To get notified when I upload more content like this one or other builds and guides for Wooter and not so Wooter games, you can subscribe to my channel and hit that bell button to not miss out on notifications. As well as keep in mind there's something called memberships on YouTube, which lets you be a paying member for my channel to get access to perks such as emotes and badges made by me, as well as the option to get one-on-one tutoring for the very basics of Adobe Photoshop, Premiere and After Effects. And memberships can be cancelled at any time if you no longer want to be a member. Thanks for watching all the way until the end, Struck Web. Keep it cool until next time, and goodbye.